This is Pratisha. Thank you so much for joining in today. So, in the last class, we learned different strategies, a little bit of advanced strategies about listening. In this class, we'll be focusing on reading and a little bit of advanced strategies there. So, with that being said, let me just share my screen, right? And there you go. So, let's discuss what are the agendas for today. Um, Again, we have done and taken a lot of things into consideration when we were doing our reading before as well. Um, this is basically detailed comprehension techniques, right? In this session, we will review some strategies for understanding complex reading passages, right? So we'll focus on complex reading passages. We'll focus on specific question types, true, false, true, false, and not given. If you remember, last time we went into detail with this one matching. So there were paragraphs and we matched them to the opinions, right? 3 or 4 opinions that was given. We practiced reading challenging academic text. We learned how to read different texts. What is the approach that we can give, so on and so forth. Then we developed skills for managing time and reading effectively during the exam, right? So developing skills for time management and effective reading was super important, right? And time management is something that we discussed. I think it was a whole entire lecture where we discussed how we can manage time. So it's again practically almost the same thing. You really need to manage your time in order to be able to solve questions. Then we have understanding common reading question types, right? So we have true, false, not given. We have matching headings, right? Where we match a list of headings to the appropriate paragraphs. We have multiple choice MCQ kind of questions, and we have sentence completion. True, false, and not given. The most challenging one is the not given part, where it seems like the information is probably true, so you get confused between if it's false or if it's not given. For not given and false, like how to choose between them is, if it's not given, it would specifically nothing would be mentioned about it, right? We don't have to infer information, right? We don't have to guess information. We don't have to, we have to stick to the facts. If it's not given, the information would genuinely be not given, right? If it's false, probably some other or alternative information would be given, right? Then you have matching headings. So you will match a list of headings to the appropriate paragraphs, right? Match the headings to paragraphs. Again, different headings would be given. It's almost like title or like a small line about it, and you have to match to different paragraphs, right? How different paragraphs work. Then you have multiple choice. Again, multiple choice, we already know how multiple choice works. And then we have sentence completion. Sentence completion is just like fill in the blank kind of questions. So we would just go ahead and do that. These two are probably the easy ones. But I guess matching the headings and true and false could be a little bit difficult to do. Then you have how to approach true, false, and not given questions. We'll just basically discuss how to approach these ones. We have to read the statements carefully. Again, you need to, first of all, the first step is to understand where the statement can be, and then reading it carefully. Scan for keywords. Make sure you're looking at the keywords, key phrases. Again, after every paragraph, I would suggest just write a little bit of information, just so you know what is where. Decide based on information. So make sure if the passage confirms or contradict or even does not mention at all the statement. Be careful with assumptions. Do not assume things, right? Assuming is the worst part. Do not assume any kind of information, right? How to approach matching heading questions. So skim each paragraph, right? Make sure that you read the first and the last sentence, right? So skimming is super important. Identify some key themes, right? Make sure that you are identifying the key themes that are there. Eliminate any kind of incorrect headings, right? If you feel there are some incorrect headings that are out there, try to cross it out. Choose the best match, right? Select the headings that would represent the central idea of the paragraph. So make sure you are choosing the best headings that are out there. For multiple choice questions, Read the questions first. Make sure you are reading it properly. Skim for keywords. Make sure the keywords are there. You are able to skim through it. Eliminate wrong answers. If there is any kind of wrong answer, make sure you have eliminated them. And double check. Make sure you have double checked everything that you are going through, right? Make sure you're double checking. I would suggest that read a paragraph, right, which could be on different topics. Here in this class, we read a couple of different difficult topics. Make sure you're going through it. Even, if you understand the paragraph, if you actually know where what information is, solving these questions would be super easy. And again, when you're going through any sort of passage, I would highly recommend, to make a mind map, right? For example, I can just share my screen on probably a text, and then we can go on from there. Just give me 1 second. I can share this text, right? And let's see on how to, yeah. So this one, I think we did already, telepathy. Let's move to this one. Sheet glass manufacture and float process. Now, again, this seems like such a boring academic topic, right? But all you need to do is just understand, like, what is there in each paragraph. That's all. So you just have to practice finding keywords and just giving it a small summary. Because when you reach till down, like when you reach till the end of the paragraph, you will not remember all the information, right? So glass, which has been made since the time of Mesopotamians and Egyptian, is little more than a mixture of sand, soda ash, and lime. When heated up to 1500 degrees Celsius, this becomes a molten mass that hardens when slowly cooled. The first successful method of making clear, flat glass involved spinning. This method was very effective as the glass had not touched any surfaces between being soft and becoming hard, so it stayed perfectly unblemished with a fire finish. However, the process took a long time and was labor intensive. It's talking about the process of heating glass, right? Heating glass. This is like the process. This is the genesis of this. Genesis means the beginning, right? So I know the whole, like a little bit of process has been explained in the first paragraph. Nevertheless, demand for flat glass was very high, and glassmakers across the world were looking for a method of making it continuously. So glass became popular and people were looking for it continuously. The first continuous ribbon process, so this is talking about ribbon process, involved squeezing molten glass through two hot rollers similar to an old mangle. So just imagine this is like the hot roller and the glass was passed through it to make it probably flat. This allowed glass of virtually any thickness to be made non-stop, but the rollers would leave both sides of the glass marked, and these would then need to be ground and polished. This part of the process rubbed away around 20% of the glass, and the machines were very expensive. So again, it's the roller part, right, and the ribbon process. So if you just imagine how is ribbon? Ribbon looks something like, this. So again, it's just explaining that this portion was supposed to be trimmed, which meant almost 20% of the glass was trimmed, right? And it was the ribbon process. The float process. So this is the other process. Float process for making glass was invented by this person. This process allowed for manufacture of clear, tinted, and coated glasses for buildings and clear and tinted glasses for vehicles. He had been experimenting with improving the melting process, and in 1952, he had the idea of using a bed of molten metal to form the flat glass, eliminating altogether the need for rollers within the float bath. So there was some kind of bath that I'm assuming, and then he would probably, float the molten glass in here. Just imagine, even if it's not true, just imagine so that you remember the information. The metal had to melt at a temperature less than the hardening point of the glass, but could not boil at a temperature below the temperature of the molten glass. The best metal for the job was tin. So it had something to do with tin plus glass. Oh my God, I cannot. right? So tin plus glass. And again, through this representation, just by knowing, I mean, this involves practice, right? I'm not saying you will be able to do it in the online test, but I mean, you can keep all this information in your head and just write one thing on your, I would say, your sheet of paper, which they give you, your rough paper. You can write all of these things down there, and things would start to make so much sense. You would be immediately, you'll be immediately able to identify, which part was I stuck on. And that's amazing. Like, you'll be able to do it, you will be able to understand it really well. So let me go back to the PowerPoint presentation that we were on, which was this one. So again, I mean, understanding the text is the best and the first thing you need to do and focus on, right? Questions are, you just need to practice the kind of questions like true and false and not given, just so that you know what to expect, right? Because each question, each test is going to be different. And after that, okay. Time management in reading is super important, because in reading we take our own time, right? We take our own time. If we don't understand, we will go back again and again and again. But that is not how it works. Speaking again is not controlled by us. Listening time is also not controlled by us. Writing is sort of like we have to control it, right? So writing and reading is very time specific things, and you really need to work on your time management when it comes to writing and reading. So allocate time per passage. It's a 60-minute test, 20 minutes each passage, because you will get 3. Skim and scan. Practice speed reading, practice skimming and scanning, and don't focus on extreme key details, right? It's not important. Don't get stuck. If you're unsure about something, make sure you guess the things in the best possible manner, and you just move on to the next one. Make sure you're reviewing things at the end. If you have time, make sure you're reviewing all your answers. And that's pretty much it. You need to review. Some mistakes to avoid. Do not misunderstand any kind of keywords, right? Pay attention to synonyms and paraphrasing in both the passage and the questions, right? So make sure you're paying attention to synonyms. Make sure you're paying attention to paraphrasing things. Do not spend too much time on one question. So do not focus on spending a lot of time on a single question. If you don't know something, just go ahead, do the other questions, and go to that question at the end. If you still don't know it and your time's up, just mark your best guess. Do not ignore word limit. If your question says that you only need, especially in fill in the blanks, not an MCQ or any other kind, but if it's a fill in the blanks, make sure you're reading. Sometimes it's written, do not write more than 1 or 2 words, all right? So that is the limit. And do not overthink, because these are pretty direct. Academic texts are very direct. It's not literature where you have to assume and infer stuff. You just, stick to the facts. Today, essentially, we reviewed some IELTS tricks for reading comprehension. We discussed some strategies for true, false, and not given kind of questions, matching your paragraphs with the headings, and some MCQ kind of questions, right? And we also practiced some academic texts, which are super important. So your homework for today would be go to a text, read the text with the strategy that I told you, and try to solve these kind of questions, right, with the tips that I gave. So that should be pretty much it for this lesson, and I hope to see you in the next one.